So just to recap really quickly, the first reason why the Byzantine text is better, it has a better compatibility with a theology of preservation. Second, its geographic location being sourced from the school of Antioch. The third one here is that it accounts best for the history of the manuscript tradition and the church. Okay, I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but it accounts best for the history of the manuscript tradition in the church. And I use, the church, capital C, not like a local church, but just generally speaking. This one speaks a little more to the Textus Receptus position. Now, I'm not going to go out and say the Textus Receptus position is bad. I don't think it's necessarily bad. I just think the Byzantine is better. So what I mean by this third item here, that it better accounts for the history of the church, is this. If you take a look at the critical text, what the critical text seems to imply is that the New Testament, we had it in a relatively pure form up to like the 6th century, okay? And when I say up to like the 6th century, is because of all the manuscripts that we have. I think it's somewhere around 5,800. That number's always changing, so I'm just going to use 5,800 for now. I think about 50 or so are considered to be part of the Alexandrian text. Again, text types or whatever. We'll just use that vernacular for now. But 50 or so belong to the Alexandrian text base, and for the most part, most of them exist before the 6th century. And then after the 6th century, with the exception of just a few, the Alexandrian text type essentially ceases to exist. And you have the overtaking of the Byzantine text. So when you think about the critical text position says this, is that we had the critical text or something looking more like it very early on, and then it disappeared only to come back sometime in the 1800s. Again, that's problematic in my opinion for a number of reasons. One is that, again, it doesn't really account for preservation. It's restorationist. And I find this interesting. I'm just going to stir the pot a little bit, right? I'm a continuationist, and as a continuationist, I often get accused of being part of a restorationist movement. But when you look at the critical text, what you're seeing is a restorationist movement. Anyway, that's almost like the pot calling the kettle black. Anyway, just a fun thing. Leave your stuff in the comments there. If you're a cessationist or a continuationist or critical text or whatever, that's how I'm linking those two together. If you've seen my channel, you know that that's something I've talked about in the past. I'm rather passionate about it, but I'm kind of steering my channel away from that discussion. Maybe on another platform. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, so I just find that interesting that the CT position is more restorationist than it is preservationist. Then with the TR position, the issue that I take with the TR position is its history goes back to about the 1500s with the start of the Reformation, right? Before that, the TR did not exist as it does today. Now, I'm not making a huge deal about it, and the reason being is because the TR is much closer to a Byzantine text reading than the critical text. Of course, the TR, in my opinion, seems to suffer from some Latin intrusions, and I'm not entirely convinced that preservation would allow for things to be preserved in another language. I think preservation must come through the original language that it was written down in. Again, you're free to disagree with that if you like, but that's where I'm coming from. With that being said, we take a look at corrections that are made from manuscripts. Sometimes a manuscript is written down and then a later hand comes and corrects something. And the example I have here is from 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16. I did a video on this a while back, and I'm not done with that. There's more to talk about that. But in it, I looked at 5 of the uncial manuscripts, and as far as I understand, most of them, the 5 of them, we're going to take a look at 4 here because the 5th one is just a weird one. Ephraemi Rescriptus, Sinaiticus, Claremontianus, I believe, would be considered Alexandrian. I'm not sure if Claremontianus, I'd have to look at that again. And then Alexandrinus would be considered Alexandrian in the epistles, but it would be considered Byzantine in the Gospels. So of these 4, we take a look at 1 Timothy 3:16, and we see corrections on them. And the correction specifically here is, he who was manifest in the flesh, 1 Timothy 3:16. The Byzantine manuscripts actually say God who was manifest in the flesh. Now, of these 4 uncials, every single one of these 4 uncials had been corrected from he who was manifest in the flesh to God who was manifest in the flesh. Now, he who is the critical text reading and God who is the Byzantine reading. You always see those corrections go in that direction. The corrections always go from the critical text reading to the Byzantine text reading. So make of that what you will, but this is what I'm suggesting with this. And this isn't the only place where this occurs. Even like the long ending of Mark. I know there's some notes in some of the manuscripts, but in Vaticanus and Sinaiticus, it's missing, but then we find it in the Byzantine manuscript. So it seems to me that the corrections typically go one way, from critical text to Byzantine. Now, why would that be? Because it appears that the church, generally speaking, widely speaking, has rejected those readings in favor of the Byzantine readings. Now, why would they reject those readings in favor of the Byzantine readings? I would think likely because they were aware that the Byzantine readings were much earlier than the ones in these manuscripts that we're looking at, such as Sinaiticus, Clermontianus, Manuscripts, so on and so forth. So to me, this better accounts for the history of the manuscript tradition in the church. So we have a wider acceptance of Byzantine readings. The TR came later in the 1500s. And then the critical text reading, which sees the text from the early centuries up to maybe the 4th or 5th century, 5th or 6th century. Not very many of them. And then it just stops there, right? With some exceptions, but it stops there for the most part and is overtaken by Byzantine readings. So what this suggests to me is that the church through the centuries seem to have rejected the readings from the Alexandrian text base and held fast to the Byzantine readings. And like I said, I believe this is because those Byzantine readings are earlier. So let me just refresh that one more time just to conclude here. Okay, so my first reason, these are by no means exhaustive. There's more, but I think we're already at 30 minutes of recording. So let me just refresh really quickly. That one, Byzantine priority makes for better compatibility with the theology of preservation. I don't think we can harmonize conjectural emendation with any theory of preservation. And then the second one is that geographic location, the general historical context surrounding Antioch, and the relative location of where the books were originally written to Antioch and the school there make it more likely that the originals would have been passed through there. And then 3, it accounts best for the whole Greek manuscript tradition rather than the critical text, which is restorationist in its sense, or the Textus Receptus, which came much later during the time of the Reformation. Anyway, brothers and sisters, I know this is probably a lot, but I figured it would be a good time to share a few reasons why Byzantine priority is better. Anyway, brothers and sisters, I hope you found this video helpful, and until next time, we'll see you around.